Charja Ashtatarasatasi Srimad. His Divine Grace is Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki, Ananda Koti Vaishnavadinda ki, Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Gaur Premanandi. Continuing to read from Canto 3, Chapter 13, The Appearance of Lord Viraha. And just from the previous verse, finished 26, so this is 27. If you like looking up the verse on your super handheld device, you can look it up. 3:13. 27. This is third canto. Third canto is being narrated by Maitreya. He's narrating to Vidura. And just going back, Vidura asked all kinds of questions about creation. So this is really early in the creation. And the previous chapter and the beginning of this chapter is Swayambhuva Manu, the first of the 14 Manus, getting his life's instruction, lifelong instruction. And then there's a gap of time, and Swayambhuva Manu speaks to Lord Brahma saying, oh, this problem in this universe, one planet fell out of orbit, the Earth planet, and please do something. You're powerful. So Brahma began to contemplate in meditation, and as he was contemplating, Lord Viraha appeared and flew in the sky and crashed into the ocean, and the celestial beings are offering praises through the medium of prayer, Vedic hymns. Lord Viraha is roaring in response, tumultuous, like a mountain. You ever heard mountain roar? So a mountain capacity, sound, the explanation, as the body is bigger, the sound is deeper and bigger, and so it was a really loud sound. He was letting them know, your prayers are acknowledged, here I go. I'm going to do what you're all wanting of me. Because these are mainly two categories. They're demigods and they're elevated sages, and both groups have concern not just about their well-being. They have concern of everything. And if there's part of everything that's in difficulty, what to speak of the whole planet fell out of orbit, and that means poor living entities that were on the planet. So they want to do something. But it's beyond their capacity, so they're calling for the Supreme Lord who's answering their request. So text 27. Before entering the water to rescue the earth, Lord Boar flew in the sky slashing his tail, his hard hairs quivering. His very glance was luminous. And he scattered the clouds in the sky with his hooves and his glittering white tusks. Purport. When the Lord is offered prayers by his devotees, his transcendental activities are described. Here are some of the transcendental features of Lord Boar. As the residents of the upper 3 planetary systems offered their prayers to the Lord, it is understood that his body expanded throughout the sky, beginning from the topmost planet, Brahmaloka or Satyaloka. That's pretty big. It is stated in the Brahma Samhita that his eyes are the sun and the moon. Therefore, his very glance over the sky was illuminating as the sun or the moon. The Lord is described herein as Mahidra, which means a big mountain, or the sustainer of the earth. In other words, the Lord's body was as big and as hard as the Himalayan mountains. Otherwise, how was it possible that he kept the entire earth on the support of his white tusks? The poet Jayadev, a great devotee of the Lord, has sung of the incident in his prayers for the incarnations. Vasati dashana shikare dhanani tava lagna shashini kalanka kaleva nimagna Keshavadrita Shukara Rupa Jaya Jagadisha Hare. All glories to Lord Keshava, Krishna, who appeared as the boar. The earth was held between his tusks, which appeared like the scars on the moon. No explanation. Text 28. He was personally the Supreme Lord Vishnu and was therefore transcendental, yet because he had the body of a hog, he searched after the earth by smell. Granena. His tusks were fearful, and he glanced over the devotee brahmanas engaged in offering prayers, thus he entered the water. Purport: we should always remember that although the body of a hog is material, the hog form of the Lord was not materially contaminated. It is not possible for an earthly hog to assume a gigantic form spreading throughout the sky, beginning from Satyaloka. His body is always transcendental in all circumstances. Therefore, the assumption of the form of a boar is only his pastime. His body is all the Vedas, or transcendental. But since he has assumed the form of a boar, he began to search out the earth by smelling, just like a hog. The Lord can perfectly play the part of any living entity. The gigantic feature of the boar was certainly very fearful for all non-devotees, but to the pure devotees of the Lord, he was not at all fearful. On the contrary, he was so pleasingly glancing upon his devotees that all of them felt transcendental happiness. The Srimad Bhagavatam is compared to a medicine that's taken not orally but through the ear. In Ayurveda, there's medicine you take through your skin because there are passageways into the circulatory system through the skin. It's a big surface, the skin. So medicine can go in that way, medicine can go in this way, and the Bhagavatam's message goes in this way. And the Bhagavatam's message is to cure the disease of material existence. And it's, in Prabhupada's words, it's like a highly potent drug injected intravenously into the body, and it acts at once on the whole body. IV medicines, when it's like really intense something or other, they give, I know somebody just recently got an IV injection of antibiotics. So because once it's in the bloodstream, it goes through the whole body. So like that, the Srimad Bhagavatam is compared to medicine that acts on our whole being, because consciousness spreads through the whole body, right? And consciousness that becomes cleansed acts through the whole body. That means including the subtle body. Not only the senses, but the mind also. Or not only the mind also, but also the senses. One becomes lifted above, just by sound, the material propensity. With the material propensity is sense gratification, that is, looking for happiness in the field of matter. And how do you do that? Through your senses. So that's this sense enjoyment, sense gratification language that Prabhupada used so much. It's searching for happiness in illusion, or sense gratification. It's interchangeable. Like sense gratification sounds like, gee, well, you know, I'm not a sense gratifier, I'm a nice devotee. But the principle of seeking happiness outside, yehi samsparsha jabhoga, that tendency, that's the material tendency. So how do you cure that tendency? You can try to restrain, do some meditation, some yoga. There's different processes for people to try to do that. The tapasvis, they go to extremes because the understanding is engaging the senses, their understanding, in the objects of the senses brings suffering, and I don't want suffering. It brings the cycle of birth and death. I don't want birth and death. I want liberation, so I'll do tapasya in an extreme, radical way. There's other things they want. They want power, because by austerities one becomes a little more controlled in terms of mind, and some shakti comes to the person who, but you know, without the purpose of bhakti, which is senses serving the master of the senses, for the pleasure of the master of the senses, it falls short. In principle, without fail, every time. Doesn't matter, something good, and you feel better, or even feel good, because it's not permanent. So how to cure that tendency? Srimad Bhagavatam. Now, Srimad Bhagavatam, as we're hearing, is describing specifically here Lord Varaha's appearance, or forms of the Lord, and it's just sound. So same as the sound of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. we hear the glories of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, and is it the same or different? The Hare Krishna Mahamantra, because this is the hymns of the Vedas, and the essence of the hymns of the Vedas is found in Gayatri, and the essence of Gayatri is, well, at least the explanation of Gayatri is Srimad Bhagavatam. It's a commentary on Gayatri mantra, the mother of all Vedic mantras. So there's distinction, obviously, and there's the sameness that's less obvious. The emphasis given by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the chanting of the holy name. We know this. There's Rupa Goswami's teachings are giving Lord Chaitanya's teachings and the Veda's teachings. So there's 64 items and 5 are most potent. Any one of these 5 done without offense can bring one very quickly to the Bhava Bhakti and then the Prema Bhakti stage at once, without offense. So these 5 are especially important. And Lord Chaitanya gave emphasis to 2 of the 5, that is, the duties of a householder, described in Chaitanya Charitamrita, serve the devotees, and as far as possible always chant the holy name. That's 2 of the 5. Then of those 2, the one that's most important is chant the holy name. His teachings to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. So it doesn't mean chant the holy name and say goodbye to all the devotees. It's just to say that's most important, and that gives the capacity and strength and purity to properly serve the devotees. And we don't always get it right in serving the devotees, which means we're not getting it right with chanting the holy name. And so, classes on Vaishnava etiquette and stuff like that, that helps, but it's not a fix. And then there's Srimad Bhagavatam. And just a little sharing on something that I've been doing lately. There's from the Oxford Project, this group of devotees that established with Oxford University religion department section called Vaishnava Studies. So one can get a PhD in Vaishnava Studies at Oxford University. It's devotees and others who aren't devotees who are in that department. Vaishnava Studies department. So those devotees, the Oxford Project devotees, along with some educators in ISKCON, got together and established for the public, not for the students, a really simple way to understand some of the elements of Bhagavad Gita. And so they call the Gita values. So I've been conducting so far 5 times, and it's kind of refining it as I go along, Gita values. It's not like there's only 6. They, for some reason, selected those 6, and it's nice. It's logical and sequential, but it doesn't have to be. They can be in any order. And one of them is Acharya. So one of the exercises is, like, what's the function of a hero? You know, in simple language for people that don't know exactly what's the role of Acharya. Like a role model or a hero in your life. What's the function? How does it work? So, Bhagavatam is filled with heroes. And it serves the function. So there's the principle, the Acharya principle. Yadid acharati shreshtas tatad eve tarorjana in Bhagavad Gita. Or Acharya Upasana in the 13th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. The concept, the principle of Acharya is in a number of places in Bhagavad Gita. That's a principle or a value that Bhagavad Gita teaches. So just hearing Srimad Bhagavatam helps make that principle come to life. And it's not like just notional, like, you know, reading Ichabod Crane, or, you know, one of the children's stories that different people wrote. Rip Van Winkle and Harry Potter and stuff. So it's not just notional, it's the sound vibration is non-different than that quality and non-different than the person, and, you know, it's a spiritual sound vibration, and it acts to take away. When consciousness becomes lifted and sheltered in spiritual sound, then the tendency of the senses goes towards serving the master of the senses when consciousness goes up. It's a spiritual medicine that does like that. Although it's just, in one sense, it's just a book. But it's not just a book like other books. It is a book. But it doesn't do what other books don't do what it does. And it doesn't do what other books do. You know, incite sense gratification, or support it and find your role model to become a great basketball player, or whatever it is, great politician, or somebody. Sesame Street. Did you watch that when you were little? Sesame Street?
Sesame Street?
Yeah. You don't remember?
I don't think it's anymore on TV. I think they stopped producing them.
What?
I think it was like a long time ago. It was the previous generation used to watch it. Elmo.
No, so it's not anymore.
Yeah.
It's dead.
Yeah.
Okay.
New things.
They must have some comparable something rather than multiple. Okay. So, you know, part of that is to help pass on values to children. Learn stuff and pass on values through, you know, fictitious characters and animated blah 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 and puppets and stuff. But it's not the same. It's not the same. It's not rooted in the spiritual conception of self and the spiritual conception of why we're doing this value, who is to be pleased by this. It falls short at best. It stirs illusion. So that's you know, it's an opinion of those who follow the Srimad Bhagavatam and revere it. But it's an opinion. Someone can dismiss it. Well, you're entitled to your opinion. I've got another opinion. Mm-hmm. But the practical result is very different. So now, why are we doing what we're doing? Why this specifically the reciting of Srimad Bhagavatam or the chanting of the holy name? And it's easy. It's easier to do things mindlessly than it is to do them mindfully. It's a little work, little, active consciousness. Even if one is mindless, it's still beneficial. But if one is mindful, the full potency can come. So we're hearing about Lord Varaha, and verse after verse, there's different explanations of what he does and his sounds and things. And repeatedly, Prabhupada is explaining that this is not material. And the repeated reminder is necessary because the conditioned mind has a tendency to think of things in a material lens. Like, how is it possible? The size and roaring like a mountain. We had some discussion not so long ago. My faith is challenged when I hear stuff like mountains talking and mountains doing things and roaring. Like yesterday, the Vindhya Hills, or Vindhya, became the father of 2 girls by Radharani's arrangement, Radha and Chandravati. And so, and so forth and so on. So, we're not interested in Ichabod Crane and Rip Van Winkle and Harry Potter. These devotees are not. Why are we interested in these other story-like? It's not. Well, one thing is that the practical result is different, but another thing is there's faith in the source, and what happens when you hear these messages and sing these songs, as opposed to hear those messages and hear those songs. Now, really important for us as devotees is to live the life of devotion. Like, become as a service to Rishikesh, use our senses in service to Rishikesh, move in the world where the character and quality of a devotee, the conduct of a devotee, that the choices that we make, the way that we speak, the way that we interact with our families and our immediate circle of association and the world outside. Generally, we're better with the world outside than with our families and our communities. We're very kind to new people, more so than we are necessarily to the persons who are very near to us, proximate to us. And that says something. But, the bigger picture, it takes higher consciousness, not just to be compassionate to poor people, or very gently and kindly give Krishna consciousness to new people, but help those who are very close to us come more to the position of being exemplary Vaishnavas and ultimately being happy. That's what Krishna wants. He wants us to be happy. That's what our acharyas want. They want us to be happy. And to be happy has some fundamental elements. Pleasing Krishna. We can become happy. and we have another model that falls short of that, and something's missing. And there's inconsistency in our conduct, in our speech, with Vaishnava principles. So I'm just speaking about this. I'm speaking in this way because of the topic I've been asked to speak about of late, or have chosen to speak about of late. This Gita values topic and overcoming negative emotions topic. I'm going to be speaking about it somewhere. MIT?
I think it's a different topic.
Art of meditation, overcoming negative emotions.
Which place?
MIT.
Okay.
And Northeastern Narcissism.
Narcissism.
Okay. So I've been speaking about that a lot at different places. So that it's saying it so many times, it's like it's really going in. And there's managing those emotions, and there's going on the other side of those emotions, and then there's transcendence where you don't have those emotions. But or the emotion becomes a transcendental emotion because it inspires or enhances. Of course, I can't speak like this at MIT or some of the other public places I speak, but that's the higher position. Everything enters into this realm of transcendence, because as above, so below. The negative emotion down here is in forgetfulness of Krishna, it's miserable. And the negative emotion, the transcendental realm, is ecstatic. And over here, we can't understand ecstatic, negative emotion. We know this one. Just like last night, I was given some more time, and so I told the appearance of Radhakund. And there's some negative emotion going on in that story, and then the pearl pastime. There's some negative emotion going on in that pastime, but it's all ecstatic. And it looked like a worldly emotion, but it's not a worldly emotion. And it's not, this is not ecstatic, and that's ecstatic. And it's not just like cute talk, it's as above, so below. Where do we get hogs from? From the spiritual world. Hogs in the spiritual world? Not like these. How do you go beyond the boundaries of material conception and understanding something that's beyond your material conception? It's through sound. And otherwise you can't get there. Just a little sharing back to the purports, and we'll end. At Washington University in St. Louis, there has been a club there for a number of years, and in the beginning, in the September month, I was visiting. I tried to visit colleges in September. So there was a freshman who was brought up in Christian Science. You heard of that? Christian Science. So it's a branch of Christianity. And she came to the evening program, and then the next morning program at Jumanji was home. So I was introduced, American girl, And so I said, what inspired you to come to the program last night and this morning? And she said, my mother is a devout Christian Scientist, and she also likes to read other things because Christian Scientists like to read other things. And she had a Bhagavad Gita, and she would share the message of Bhagavad Gita, and I didn't quite understand it, so when I saw the flyer that said discussions on Bhagavad Gita, I wanted to come, I wanted to learn about it. I said, oh. So you know something about Christian Science. When I was in high school, there was a family, a Christian Science family, and I was always curious, like, what are their teachings? So, do you mind if I ask you some questions about the picture of Christian Science? She said, well, I'm not a scholar, but I know from my mom, I know some stuff, so I'll try. So then I can share that this is Bhagavad Gita's perspective on topics, because that's something you're interested in. She said, great. So we went down the path. Christian Science believes in the soul. Christian Science believes in reincarnation. Christian Science believes in karma. They have another term for it, but they believe in karma. You're responsible for what you do. And Christian Science believes that there is heaven, and beyond heaven is the kingdom of God. I said, wow. So then I said, what's the kingdom of God like, according to Christian Science? And she was like, she didn't know how to answer that one. She said, you'll know when you get there. Well, how do you know that you're there when you get there? People send text messages back and say, this is what it's like. How do you know that you're there? Because, so there was the travel advertisement. If you want to go to, Goa or Hawaii or, someplace, Paris, there's a travel, what's it like there? And she didn't know how to answer that. And because I asked that when I was young, and I told her, what's it like? Even in heaven, what to speak of the kingdom of God? And I didn't have a clear idea of the distinction between the two, but when I asked, it was like, nobody knew. So I said, here's the Vedic picture. The place where Krishna resides is called Goloka. And Goloka means planet, and Go means cow. So it's a planet of cows. She went, no. I said, why no? He said, well, you can't have cows in this kingdom of God. I said, why you can't have cows in the kingdom of God? You got cows here, you can't have cows there? I said, they're not cows like these cows. They're Surabhi cows, and here's what Surabhi cows are like. And, there's unlimited. She said, I have to think about it. I said, you're not going to understand by thinking about it. You have to hear. So that's our process of understanding what's beyond the conceivable or beyond the limited mind and senses, is through sound. So this Bhagavatam is that. It's connection of course, it's behaviors and conduct of worldly people that are exalted and the opposite kind, and then there's residents of the spiritual world. We're able to hear all three, and have a clear understanding of all three, and be sure about it, because it elevates consciousness, and as consciousness becomes elevated, the covering of tendencies towards sense gratification or trying to be the enjoyer of the temporary becomes diminished just through that sound. It's mystical, but it's real. It's the experience of someone who hears. There's a small set of requirements. One of them is you want to know. If you don't want to know, it doesn't have the same effect. It has some effect, But it doesn't have the same effect as if there's this jigyasu, the inquisitiveness. You want to know. And then you can connect. Your heart is open and you can receive better. Lord Varaha. It's a good one. You know, the Lord is a bore. Oh gosh. These people. Not only they worship somebody that dances with girls at night, but they worship a bore. But the elevated devotees, they didn't see the material, they saw the spiritual feature. And his sound and his glancing lit up the sky. You know, it's dark. They knew. And he knew that they knew, and he was doing things to let them know that he knew. And then he rescued the earth. And using smell. Now he didn't enter, the verse that we just read, he had not yet entered into the Garbhodak ocean. He was still doing his thing in the sky. But he's going to use smell to find the earth that's toward the bottom of the Garbhodak ocean. So he appeared in a form, is explained. He appeared in a form that was appropriate for going to what's called the filthy place. Now I don't know why it's called the filthy place. The Garbhodak ocean is a filthy place. But that's described. Mire is another term that's used here. So towards it, yes, it's at the bottom of the universe, because the 14 planetary systems are above the Garbhodak ocean, and so the lower planetary systems, that's a bad place. This is lower than that. But it's the Garbhodak ocean. Body, water from the body, Garbhodak Shai Vishnu. It's a puzzle. I don't have the answer to that one, so don't ask me. Okay, so any discussion? Yeah.
Guru Maharaj, regarding the description of the kingdom of God, so we hear a lot in the Gokumar story, how he went from one planet to the other and one region of the Lord to the other. So I want to understand, is that the realization of Srila Sanatana Goswami, or is it really that story happened?
When asked that question, Gopi Pranadhana Prabhu said you can take it either way.
Yeah.
I'm listening.
Are you asking?
Yeah, but do you want to continue?
No, you ask it.
So, this is about yesterday. Can I ask it?
Yesterday's class. Radharani's appearance?
No, Bhadra Purnima. Bhadra Purnima.
Bhadra Purnima, okay.
So, in Bhadra Purnima, you said that the day that you put Bhagavatam on a golden throne and give it to somebody. So, and then you go to Goloka. I want to do that, but I don't really want to go to Goloka. I want to go to like Ayodhya, Hovalam, Navadvip.
Okay.
So like
Krishna will reciprocate. The personality of Godhead will reciprocate with the transcendental desire of his devotee. Just like, which place did Dhruva go to? Vaikuntha. Which place did the associates of Lord Ram go to? Ayodhya. So, he reciprocates. Where did Bhishma Dev go? He was a devotee of Krishna, right? Bhishma Dev? Where did he go? Vaikuntha. That was his mood, so that's where he went. The Lord reciprocated with him that way. Don't worry. You don't have to go to Goloka if you don't want to.
So yes, Maharaj, regarding again Gokumar's story, so he had all these emotions regarding seeing one form of the Lord and then feeling sad for his attraction towards the Braja Bhumi. So I was thinking in when we go through the emotions, so can we distinguish it between a material emotion
Oh yeah,
and spiritual emotion?
yeah.
And what is that distinction?
Whose pleasure is being served? That's the distinction between material and spiritual.
So in his case also, it was his desire. He was already in the
That's
kingdom
okay.
of God.
It's the satisfaction of the personality of Godhead. And his desire was the satisfaction of the personality of God. That was his desire. Specifically, it says in Brihad Bhagavatam, Gopakumar wanted to receive the fullness of the gift given to him by his spiritual master. Otherwise, he would be ungrateful. It wasn't, just I want. It was the sense of gratitude, which means love for the object of his mantra, Madan Gopal. And whatever that was, he didn't know Madan Gopal, but he just some intuitive sense. He had, studied Srimad Bhagavatam. He hadn't heard like 16 million classes like we have. He just had an intuitive sense. Okay. Yes.
Kumar, this is more like a curiosity question. So in this material world, the different varieties of oppositions, the challenges within the realm of material energy, it creates more opportunities for service because of the way the material energy is.
More than what?
I'm thinking like in the spiritual world, everything is governed by just one desire will manifest things before us. So there is less and less challenge to get something accomplished. So
That's a total speculation.
I know, I'm just
Yes,
thinking.
but I'm commenting on your thinking. It's a total speculation. Are there not obstacles in transcendence? There are obstacles. At least it appears there are obstacles. All kinds of obstacles. But it's that when one faces those obstacles, it's not through the agency of false ego, okay, now what I'm going to do because I want to be happy and I don't like the obstacle. It's love. And in love, in transcendental love, in the Vaikuntha and Goloka realm and Ayodhya realm, there's obstacle. Say obstacle or meeting. And so forth. Yeah.
Raj, so nice to see you. I'm having a discussion with a supervisor about mindfulness.
Ha!
The
Good luck.
supervisor's telling me I need to be more mindful of doing this right, putting this machine in the right place, pushing the right button and so on.
That's a kind of mindfulness.
Yes. And so I've spoken to him about Krishna consciousness, and he says, Krishna consciousness is everything consciousness. But
You want to know how to take the discussion with this manager to another level?
I'm trying. What do I say? I'm trying to encourage the supervisor to be listening, to be hearing, to really know what Krishna consciousness is, and not just say a blanket statement that it's everything consciousness.
Well, I don't know if they don't know the fellow. You know, some people are stubborn, you can't take them anywhere. But, you know, it's one of the best ways that I've found is ask a lot of questions rather than tell. So like, you know, what does everything consciousness mean? And what is everything? And what is consciousness? You know, just like...
So in that sense, it's like karma yoga. I will do all my work for Krishna.
Well, not necessarily. I mean, it's everything consciousness can mean all kinds of different things to different people. So it's a little bit, what I'm saying in response to your question, is a little bit like dealing with scientists or an atheist. I don't believe in God. What's the God that you don't believe in? Oh, I don't believe in that God either. Ah, so here's the God I believe in. Oh, that makes sense. So, you know, even among scientists, if you're going to connect with somebody, what's your view? So here's a scientist, it's known in science. Here's empiric data. This scientist reads it this way, that scientist reads it that way. So what's your read on the facts? What does consciousness of everything mean? What is consciousness? Let's drill down. What is everything? What is consciousness of everything? What is it? Well, you say that's what Krishna consciousness is. And then you see where the bucket has some holes in it, and you just, so here's another model. You know, everything. Does everything have a source, or it just exists? Where did it come from? Where does everything come from? Just questions. You take them down the path where they get to, you know, like, this is, look, I know stuff. You ask me questions, I'll tell you stuff. So they tell you stuff. And then you know, have the hold up where there's holes in that picture of stuff. And here's another model. That's an approach. Depends on, you know, the patience that you have and the patience the person has and the kind of personality they are.
I'll try that.
Or find out something that this person likes and give them some of something that he likes. I find, you know, modern people have a lot of faith in science. So I met somebody in Grand Rapids, Michigan, who was like in his late 30s, American fellow. Grew up in a Christian family, went off to college, forgot everything. After college, he got into Eastern philosophy. He started to like Buddhism. He now knows like lots of different brands of Buddhism, and he's kind of life is eclectic Buddhism. And then he came across Bhagavad Gita, so now he's like curious about mantra meditation, but he's not really into mantra meditation. He's into the other kinds, Zazen, which I was familiar with. So But just, here's what science says about sound. Oh, can you send me those articles? I think I'll try trying out mantra meditation. Just find out what the interest is and give some resources to nourish that interest that takes them on a bridge that goes to Krishna. And what's important to you? Anyway, here's some resource to help that which is important to you. How do you relate to, reality in life? Okay, here's some resource that will help you. Maybe it's history. Different things. People have different interests. So, a straight-on approach may not work, but just something that's according to their personality and their propensities and their current set of conditioning. Some resource that will connect with that, and off they go. Maybe it's music. Who knows? Maybe it's architecture. Who knows? Maybe it's medicine. Who knows? What's that person's interest? And give some resource that nourishes that and connects them to Krishna.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. So it's not related to any of the topics yesterday or today, but in general question, a person who's been like Ketan Kin, who's been doing chanting for 16 rounds for the past 1 year, but she's been like my mom. She's been listening to others as well, apart from ISKCON preachers as well. So she was like looking for help as to what she can do to progress further. She feels that she's not progressing, but when I tell her to listen to the lectures and stuff, she says, yeah, I'm listening to Gaur Gopal Das and Gauranga Das Prabhu's lectures. She's listening to it, but she is listening to others as well. And she's kind of struggling hard to move forward and take further steps. So how is that I can help her in her progress?
I don't know the person. That's hard to say. What she has faith in, nourish that which she has faith in. Provide resources that nourish her faith and take her closer. And, knowing her as you know her, what are her buttons? Like, I'm your son, I'm just making this request to because I'm making this request. Or, whatever her buttons are.
She has complete faith in the chanting.
Okay. But, I don't want to refine, just speaking principle.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe there's somebody proximate that can hang out with her, and through association she can go further because of association, or I don't know what. Say, I don't know the person. Let's see. Okay. Yes.
Maharaj, related to the material and the spiritual emotion.
What? Can you speak slower and clearer?
Sorry. Related to material and spiritual.
Material and spiritual.
So, this was a discussion between me and my husband. When we look upon a person, I was insisting that we should look upon the spiritual aspects of the person. So, and we should not, we should ignore the material things.
Why?
If it is not.
I'm asking, why? Why do you say that? Ignore.
When it is not appropriate, I said.
Why is it not appropriate?
Spiritual guidance and spiritual.
Why is it not appropriate?
No, when we have a
I'm asking. So why is it not appropriate? Look at you have a little child in your lap. Just ignore the fact that she's a little child. She's just a spirit soul. I mean, you don't do that. You don't ignore that she's a little girl and she has little girl needs. You don't do that. And why would you want to do that anyways? There's the holistic picture. The being is the soul, and the soul is in a package, and there's needs. There's physical needs. There's emotional needs. And so you look at the whole picture. There's inclinations this way and inclinations that way. You know, like Radha likes pasta. And she doesn't like some other things. So you don't ignore it.
So the clarity where I wanted was when there are something negative coming, you know. So when we interpret in a negative way or somehow.
That's something else. But you know, that's your issue.
Yes.
But it's not just your soul issue. It's your psychology, your mind, and your senses. You are reading something that causes the negative emotion.
Yes. So in that perspective, I said, let's ignore the material aspect.
You don't
So
ignore
is
it.
No?
You deal with it.
Okay.
In service. But you know, there's different ways of dealing in service. You had something.
Maharaj, connecting to Mataji's question, is everythingness the same as Krishna?
Is what?
Everything consciousness, Krishna consciousness, or are they two different things?
I speak a little louder. I didn't catch what your question is. Is everything what or what? Is everything consciousness that question?
Kind of. Is everything consciousness the same as Krishna consciousness,
No.
or are they different?
No, that's everything consciousness is totally impersonal and new agey and notional at best. Again, it depends on what somebody means by everything consciousness. You know, because the starting point was mindfulness. So what does it mean to be mindful? Well, you know, if you're mindful about your eating and mindful about your walking and mindful about your everything, you know, you're doing your homework, mindfulness. So you're mindful of in everything that you do. That's fine. And what does mindfulness mean? You know, so it depends on. But just leave Krishna out of the picture immediately. It's impersonal.
Thank you.
Srila Prabhupada ki
Jai. Maharaj.